Hello, everyone. This is the 242nd episode of Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and a Soccer Nostalgia blog. For this episode, I welcome back Argentine journalist Mr. Nacho Dimari as we continue our series on the Argentina national team matches under César Luis Menotti, this time in the year 1981. Welcome back, Nacho.
Hello, how are you? Happy New Year, Sahan, to you and all the viewers and listeners.
Thank you. So let's go back in time. Last time we left off at the end of the year 1980 as Argentina were preparing for the 1981 Mundialito in Uruguay. So, what was the state of the affairs with the national team with Cesar Luis Menotti in charge as they're about to take part in this Mundialito?
Well, the Mundialito was a very important tournament because it reunited all the world champions in the history. And instead of England, it was selected Holland. So it was very important just to know more or less a year and a half before the tournament, the World Cup, how was the level in Argentina against those important teams. So there was a lot of expectations about the Mundialito in Uruguay.
And in fact, it will be the last semi competitive environment that the national team would be in prior to the World Cup the following year. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It was important also because I think that it was the last chance, perhaps, for some players through the Mundialito make it to the World Cup.
And it was so important that foreign based trio of Ardiles, Bertoni, and Kempes were also called up, which
That's
Menotti
right.
rarely called them up. It seems like the foreign based players. Yeah.
That's right. At that time, very different from nowadays. There were not so many players playing in other countries, and Menotti usually tried to play with the ones that were here in Argentina. But Bertoni, Ardiles, and of course Kempes were key players for that national team.
We discussed in our previous podcast how in the year 1979 and 1980, Diego Maradona had reached the status and fame that few players in history have earned. He was the most talked about player in the world by this point. Can you paint a picture of his fame at this point as we come to 1981?
Well, no doubt about it that he was the most important player in Argentina because he was playing at that time in Boca Juniors.
He
He,
was about to join Boca Juniors. I think later on,
he that's
right?
right. He was
Yeah.
about to join Boca Juniors and with the possibility also because at that time there was also some European teams that were trying to buy Maradona. But at that point in Argentina, I think that it was more important Maradona than even Kempes, who was the last striker of the World Cup in 1978, and of course, the most important player of the Argentine team at that tournament.
There's already a circus around him, media circus at this point. In fact, it was during this Mundialito where he does that famous photo shoot with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge that you see all the time on social media, I think, right?
Yes, that's right. Maradona was always with some kind of a circus surrounding him. His life, not only as a football player, but his private life, private, I mean, that he was always doing things and everybody, the press was watching and telling and giving the opinion of what he was doing in the pitch and outside it.
As far as the rest of the team, the backbone of the team still contained many of the 1978 veterans like the captain Daniel Passarella,
Mhm.
Filo, Galvan, Tarantini, Olguin, Americo Gallego. Even Lucas still was still part of the team at this point, and
That's right.
the foreign-based players that we mentioned. So that backbone was still a vital part of the national team at this point.
I think that for Menotti, it would be very difficult to change the majority of the national team who 2 years before make it to won the first World Cup for Argentina. So the decision of perhaps leave some players was not very easy to him. So I think that that was why he was with the majority of the team that were world champions, and he preserved that base of the team.
So for this Mundialito, Argentina are in a group with Brazil and West Germany. And they started the Mundialito on New Year's Day, January 1st, at the Estadio Centenario at Montevideo against West Germany. This is a West Germany, many of the familiar faces. You already mentioned Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, but you had the likes of Felix Magath, Horst Hrubesch, Hans-Peter Briegel, Karl-Heinz Forster, Manfred Kaltz, Harald Schumacher in goal. This was,
Incredible team.
yeah, and this was a team that had been undefeated under their new manager, Joop Derval. And this was their first loss after 23 matches. So for this match for Argentina, we have the following lineup. Ubaldo Filol of River Plate, Jorge Olguin of Independiente, Luis Galvan of Talleres de Cordoba, Daniel Passarella, captain of the team, River Plate, Alberto Tarantini, River Plate, Americo Gallego, Newell's Old Boys, Osvaldo Ardiles from Tottenham in England, Diego Maradona, at this point Argentinos Juniors, Daniel Bertoni in Fiorentina in Italy. He'd replaced by Leopoldo Luque of River Plate in the 68th minute, Ramon Diaz of River Plate, Mario Kempes at Valencia in Spain, and he'd be replaced by Jose Valencia of Talleres de Cordoba in the 46th minute. In fact, Kempes was injured and he would miss the rest of the tournament,
The
for the
tournament.
last match. Yeah. Before the match, Joop Derval had talked about deploying Rainer Bonhoff as a left back, but he clearly played as a libero. And Derval said that he was doing this to confuse Menotti. And Briegel was put in charge of Maradona and did somewhat mark him out of the game. And Maradona himself praised Briegel's achievement. As far as the match itself, it would be the Germans who would take the lead in the 41st minute. Hansi Müller took a corner kick from the left and Horst Hrubesch headed it in. It would be until the end of the match where Argentina would come back, and as they were the better team and had more of the possession. So with 6 minutes to go, a corner is taken from the right side and Passarella headed it. This bounce led to a mix-up between Schumacher and Kaltz, and a Hamburg defender accidentally deflected it into his own net. We come to the 88th minute, and Valencia took the ball from defense and went with it all the way near the West Germany penalty area and released the ball for Ramon Diaz on the right, who chipped Schumacher from a narrow angle. And Argentina had won 2-1 and ended West Germany's 23 match unbeaten run under manager Joop Derval.
Passarella was a very key player for Menotti for several reasons, and one of that reasons was that even if he was a defender, he was perhaps one of the most important attackers of that team. He was incredible when he had to defend and when he had to attack. He was the most important header player that I have seen. It was incredible. I think that when you support a team of Passarella as a player, you always have the expectation that he could score at any time. And that was something that I think that Menotti was aware of, and it was many times in Argentina, in River Plate, and in the other teams that he plays that he made this. He scores at the right time.
And let's not forget his free kicks.
Oh, also, and penalty too.
A few days later, on January 4th, again at the Estadio Centenario at Montevideo, Argentina faced Brazil. Now, this is the Brazil of Tele Santana. You have some familiar names. Zico was missing, but you have Socrates, Cerezo, Junior, Oscar. So many of the players that would form the backbone of the 1982 squad. So, for this match for Argentina, we have the following lineup: Filol, Olguin, Galvan, Pasarella, captain of the team, Tarantini, Juan Barbas of Racing Club. He will be replaced by Leopoldo Luque in the 86th minute, and this would be Luque's final cap for Argentina. His 44th and final cap. His first cap had been in 1975. Then you have Gallego, Ardiles, Bertoni. He'd be replaced by Valencia in the 46th minute, Maradona, and Diaz. In this match, Argentina would take the lead in the 30th minute when Maradona got hold of the ball in the right side touchline. He went towards the goal and from a narrow angle took a hard shot and scored for Argentina. Brazil would tie the match early in the second half in the 47th minute when, after a corner from the left side, the ball bounced around in the goal mouth between the players. It finally reached an unmarked Edevaldo on the right side and he blasted it past Fidel. The match ended as a 1-1 tie. We should mention that as Kempes was injured, Maradona was pushed into a more forward position, and that's why you have Barbas starting in midfield. And at the final whistle, there was a fight between some of the players. I think Paulo Isidoro, he kicked Valencia. Maradona joined in to help his teammate. Then Edevaldo tried to stop Maradona and on and on. So the police had to come and restore order. Incidentally, the referee did not take any disciplinary action as he was unable to see how the fight had broken out. So maybe both teams got away with one, in
That
this
yeah,
case. Yeah.
yeah, that was lucky for them that there was no bar at that time.
So, what were the general lessons for Argentina from this Mundialito?
I think that it was, as I told before, a good performance for Menotti to see some players. You said something very important. That was the last match of Luque, and Luque was one of the most important players that won the World Cup in Argentina in '78. But at that time, there was a young Ramon Angel Diaz who was replacing him, and he was very efficient, not also in the national team, but in River Plate too. So I think that at this point, Menotti would decide that he will continue with some youth players like Barbas, like Ramon Diaz, and he lived here in Argentina for the World Cup, Leopoldo Jacinto Luque, who, as I told, was a key player in the World Cup in '78.
Yeah, certainly one of the legends of the 1978 World Cup win.
No
Yeah.
doubt about it.
And just about Luque, let's just remember that in the 1978 World Cup, he played even though his brother had been killed in a car accident at some point during the tournament. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that was incredible. I think that they were traveling from Santa Fe or Mendoza. I don't know where they were traveling to see him play. They had an accident and he died. Menotti told him that he could leave the team, and he said that he didn't want to. He want in the memory of his brother. He want to continue playing.
Right.
So hats off.
After the Mundialito, Maradona would join Boca Juniors that you mentioned. Was that the necessary step required before heading to Europe in the near future to play for one of the biggest teams in the land?
I think that on those years, it was some kind of official thing. If you want to play in Europe, first play in River or in Boca. Although other players reach Europe and make a very fantastic career without playing in River or in Boca. I remember Osvaldo Piazza or Carlos
Kempes.
Bianchi,
Yeah.
Kempes also. But River and Boca was the last temptation in Argentina before going to Europe. Also, the price of the player will increase if they make a good some good years playing in Boca or in River. Nowadays, those things have changed, and
Yeah.
the players perhaps didn't want don't want to go to River or Boca, and if they had the possibility to go directly to Europe, they done that.
Also ahead of the 1981-82 season, Mario Kempes was loaned back home to play for River Plate and be near the
Yes.
national team ahead of the World Cup. Was he pressured by Menotti for this? Can you shed light on this decision that I imagine Valencia would not have liked?
I think that Menotti would speak with Kempes and all the other players, saying that if he could have them near the national team, it will be more important for him and for the players. So I think that at that point, and even so, River Plate would like to, as Maradona had seen for Boca Juniors, so River would have to make a very good decision and find a player in the
To balance it
equal
out, yeah.
sensation. And so they said, which player is such important as Maradona? Well, the striker of the World Cup in 1978, Kempes. So I think that between that, and I think that Menotti would talk to the players saying that he would prefer to have them near the national team. I think that that was the decision of Kempes to came back to Argentina, play for River, and he did it with success.
And there's that famous photograph with Maradona and Kempes, each one holding their new kit. That's we see it
Yes.
all the time. Yeah.
Uh,
The national team took a long break for many months following the Mundialito and did not play any matches, but went on a tour of Europe in August and September, like 7, 8 months later, but playing only against club teams. Why do you think Menotti took this approach?
I think that perhaps there were no national teams available as the important level as Menotti would prefer to play. And playing at that time, playing with a national team against a local team, not a national team, was commonly at that time. I remember not only Argentina, France, for example, that play Cosmos. Argentina played Cosmos a couple of times. And I think that those kind of matches were without pressure for the players. So there were like a trainment, but with public in it.
So their first match in this tour was on August 22nd at Valencia at Estadio Luis Casanova. And against Valencia, you have the following lineup: Filol, Olguin, Galvan, Pasarella, Tarantini, Juan Barbas, Gallego, Maradona, who now was at Boca Juniors, Ramon Diaz. He's replaced by Alberto Brailovsky of
Oof.
Independiente in 67th minute. And Brailovsky became an Israeli international in 1986. And he had also represented Uruguay at youth level.
That's incredible, but look, I think that nowadays he lives and he's a commentator in the Mexican TV
Yes.
because he make a very fantastic career over there.
And you have Mario Kempes, who's now at River Plate. He's replaced by Patricio Hernandez of Estudiantes in the 46th minute. You have Enzo Ferrero playing at Sporting Gijón in Spain.
Gijon, he was a left winger.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. His last match for Argentina had been 1974, and he'll
that's
be
incredible.
yeah, and he'll be replaced by Santiago Santamaria of Newell's Old Boys in the 46th minute. As far as the match, Argentina would win 1-0 in the 56th minute from the middle of the field. Maradona went on a solo run inside the Valencia box on the right side. He cut in and passed to the middle for Diaz, who went on to score. So Argentina won 1-0. The next match is against Hercules from Alicante. And this match was actually part of Trofeo Costa Blanca on August 25th at Estadio Rico Perez of Alicante. For this match, you have Filol Olguin, Jose Vantuin of Racing Club, Pasarela, captain of the team, Julio Olarticochea of Racing Club. His first unofficial appearance, of course, he's a 1986 World Cup champion and also 1990 World Cup finalist. Barbas, he'd replaced by Victor Heredia of Instituto de Cordoba in the 70th minute. Gallego, Maradona, Santa Maria, he'd replaced by Enzo Ferrero in the 65th minute. Diaz, he'd replaced by Brailovsky in the 79th minute. Patricio Hernandez, and he'd replaced by Luis Galvan in the 42nd minute. And Galvan came in because Pasarela had been sent off 2 minutes earlier. So this match, Argentina would win 2-0. Ramon Diaz scored in the 32nd and the 47th minutes.
You have to notice that for Pasarela, there were no friendly matches.
Seems like it, yeah. Now, the next match would be a very entertaining match on August 29th against Fiorentina in Florence, in Italy. And for this match, Daniel Bertoni will be playing for Fiorentina. So this is a Fiorentina with the likes of Giovanni Galli in goal, Pietro Viercovod, Giancarlo Antonioni, the star of the team, Francesco Graziani, and a young Daniel Massaro. For this match on August 29th, you have the following lineup. Filol, Olguin, Vantuin, he's replaced by Olarticochea in the 16th minute. Pasarella, captain of the team. Tarantini, Barbas, Gallego, Maradona, Santa Maria, he'd replaced by Brailovsky in the 77th minute. Diaz, Jose Valencia, and he'd replaced by Mario Kempes in the 62nd minute. This match, Argentina would win 5-3. And we should mention that Daniel Passarella actually missed a penalty kick in the 5th minute.
He scored twice.
Yes. One of a penalty kick, yeah. So this match, Fiorentina would take a 2-0 lead when Francesco Casagrande and Daniel Massaro from a cross by Bertoni scored, and Fiorentina took a 2-0 lead. Early in the second half, in the 48th minute, Passarella scored from an indirect free kick. But just a few minutes later, in the 52nd minute, Fiorentina took a 3-1 lead when Daniel Bertoni, scored against his nation. But in the 57th minute, Argentina would be awarded a penalty kick after a handball in the box, and Passarella scored from a penalty kick. The third goal for Argentina, the video footage is unclear. It's almost impossible to see what happened. But they score in the 66th minute through Juan Barbas. And just 2 minutes later, they took a 4-3 lead through Maradona. 2 minutes after that, in the 70th minute, Maradona scored again. Argentina won 5-3.
That team of Fiorentina was a very important team with very good players, and
They almost
from
won the
from
Serie A that season.
that's
At the
right.
very
And from that time till the next year, they bought Passarella, and
Yes, after
Passarella
the World Cup, that's correct.
was
Yeah.
going to join that team in 1982. And also the shirt
Oh,
of
yes.
Fiorentina was incredible, is incredible. But at
Indeed.
that time, better shirt too.
So their next match is against Barcelona at Nou Camp on September 1st. And this is a Barcelona with the likes of the West German Bernd Schuster, Victor Rexach, Alan Simonson, the Danish striker, Kini, managed by the West German manager Udo Lattek. So for this match, we have the following lineup. Hector Ballet of Talleres de Cordoba in goal. Olarticochea, Olguin, Passarella, Tarantini, Barbas, Gallego, Maradona, Santa Maria. He'd replaced by Enzo Ferrero in the 55th minute. Diaz, Valencia, and he'd replaced by Kempes in the 46th minute. This match, Barcelona would win 1-0 with Alan Simonson scoring in the 77th minute.
Mhm.
And that was the end of the tour.
He was a very important player, Simonsen. He was an attacker from Denmark, and he used to play with Mönchengladbach.
Yeah, he won the Ballon d'Or with Mönchengladbach in
That's right.
77. Yeah. Menotti experimented in this tour and included a number of French players as well. So, what was the takeaway from this tour?
I think that even if it is supposed that against teams, a national team like Argentina, who at that time were the world champions, they would have to win easily all the matches. I think that what Menotti wanted to do was to use all the players with the possibility of evaluate all their place and mark if they will continue in the national team or no. And playing against those teams, Barcelona especially, and Fiorentina, it was like playing with a national team. You name all those players like Schuster in Barcelona, Simonsen, or in Fiorentina, Bertoni, Graziani. So the level of the match will be very useful for Menotti to take note of what he was going to do a year and a half later. But in Argentina, two things I want to tell you. First, you notice that if you saw the videos, and the listeners will do, at that time, I don't know if it was something for all the national teams, but Argentina, when they used to play a team and not a national team, they didn't use the
Yes,
traditional
yes. They either
shirt.
wore white or the blue one. Yeah, yeah.
That's right, because it was forbidden at that time for Argentina to play with the first shirt those kind of matches. The first shirt was only to play against another national teams. And the
Wow.
other thing that I wanted to say is that the press was looking for mistakes of the national team, and it doesn't matter if they were playing against another national team or a team like Hercules or Fiorentina. The press was always trying to look for mistakes and expose them in the journals. At that time, the Argentine press was very, very heavy for the national team. I think that that would continue for as long as 6 years minimum, and we are going to see in the future why I say this.
For Bilardo, of course, the style and all that. Yeah.
I didn't want to say you say it, not me.
Two more matches at the end of the year. The first match is against Poland on October 28th at Buenos Aires at the El Monumental. Yeah, this is a Poland team that includes Zbigniew Boniek, one of the biggest stars in the world football at that point. In fact, we discussed this match in our Argentina versus Poland match history. So,
Yes.
so for this match on October 28th, we have the following lineup: Filol, Olguin, Passarella, making his international debut, Edgardo Boza of Rosario Central, who would not be back.
Central defender.
Yeah, who would be back as well, but only for Bilardo many, many years later.
That's
So,
right.
and Tarantini, Barbas, Gallego. You have another international debutant, Luis Amuchastegui of Racing de Cordoba.
You know, he was La Araña, the spider, Amuchaste. His nickname, La Araña. Araña is a spider,
Spider, right, right.
but not Spider-Man, spider.
Spider, yeah. Then you have Diaz, Kempes, and the third international debutant in this match. Of course, many people know him as a manager these days, Ricardo Gareca of Boca
Yes.
Juniors. He'd be replaced by Jose Valencia in the 59th minute. Of course, this match, the biggest talking point was the absence of Maradona. Maradona, in fact, he was called up but did not show up, and he sent his personal manager, Jorge
Caterpillar.
Gisterpiller, yeah, to explain his absence. He said that Maradona was willing to play the matches but did not want to train and stay in a training camp as he was physically and mentally burnt out from too much playing. And he mentioned that he had to play excessive number of friendlies and matches for Boca Juniors, which included a trip to Africa.
That's right.
He even said that he was tired of journalists asking about his private life and even mentioned he might quit football altogether because of the pressure.
That's Maradona. That was
Yeah.
Maradona.
So Menotti was visibly angered and he called up Patricio Hernandez as a replacement. And when by the next day, Maradona still had not arrived, he was kicked out of a squad, but Menotti said this was only a temporary measure. And later, Maradona met Menotti 2 days later and they talked about it. He said he would return when he's mentally ready. Even Passarello and some of the other teammates went to discuss this with Maradona.
Passarella was also the captain of the team, so he will be there every time Menotti need his presence.
And Galvan was also missing. That's why Boza made his debut. As far as the match itself, Argentina takes the lead in the 42nd minute when Passarella scored from an indirect free kick. Poland will tie the match in the 55th minute through Andrzej Bunkol. And in the 70th minute, Zbigniew Boniek scored the winner from a free kick. This was actually Argentina's first home defeat since the World Cup in 1978 against Italy.
It's very important to say that that Poland team was a very, very good one.
They would finish
Two
third.
years,
Yeah,
2 years later, they will finish
1970.
third, and with Boniek at the peak of his career, and he has a lot of players, important players. At that time, they didn't have the possibility to play outside Poland at that time, but it was a very important team.
Yeah. Well, unless they reach a certain age, like I think it was 28 or 30, I don't remember. But like by then they were past their
Yes,
prime. Yeah.
yes, that's right. They have to
Yeah.
be I think, 32 years old to have the possibility to play outside those countries. That
Yeah.
was the deal at that time. But
Yep.
for Argentina, it was an important year, even though they play less matches that they could play in 1 year, not one season, but in 1 year. But I think that the Mundialito, also having Kempes in Argentina, so that every time that the team would reunite to train, they would have Kempes and Maradona going from Argentinos juniors to Boca. I think that there was some important things going on inside the national team.
Well, there was one more match for the year. On November 11th, they faced Czechoslovakia at Buenos Aires at El Monumental. So for this last match, we have the following lineup: Filol, Olguin, Galvan, Passarella, captain of the team, Tarantini. That's a standard defensive lineup since the 1978 World Cup and into the 1982 World Cup. Barbas, Gallego, Amuchastegui, Hernandez, Ramon Diaz, and Kempes. And we should mention that in this match also Passarella missed a penalty kick in the 76th minute. So Czechoslovakia would take the lead in the 14th minute when Zdenek Valek scored with a long range shot from outside of the box. Argentina would tie the match in the 71st minute when Kempes' header in the middle reached to Gallego in the box and he volleyed it in. And the match ended as a 1-1 tie. In these last two matches against Poland, Menotti experimented by including three debutants. The match against the Czechoslovakia was essentially the standard lineup without Maradona, it seems like, and the foreign based players. What was the takeaway from these two final matches?
I think that if we focus on the results of the team, It was not expected. That's fair to say because you can't beat neither Poland, neither Czechoslovakia. That was very rare.
But I would add they were good teams at the time, both of them.
Also, yes,
Yeah.
yes, both of them were a good team, even though Czechoslovakia make it also to the World Cup in 1982. But you suppose that Argentina, as world champion, would have beat them. But I think that at that point, Menotti was not looking for results and beat the other teams, but to make good decisions on which players were going to survive and we're going to have the possibility of go to the World Cup in Spain the next year. That was the goal for Menotti. He wanted to know exactly which players were going to take part of the World Cup because if my memory is not so in bad condition, I think that in 1982 they didn't play those players, the one who were selected for the national team to go to the World Cup in Spain, didn't play the national championship. They play till January or February, and then they
Oh,
went
training
with the
camp.
national team, yes, to train. So that was very something that that nowadays it
Would not
will.
happen. Yeah.
No, no, no. Imagine
Yeah.
you have River bought Kempes. He played 1 year, and then the other half of the year they can't use him because he's going to the national team. It's in Boca the same. It's something that it won't happen.
The incident with Maradona ahead of the match against Poland, was that the first time that Maradona had problems like that regarding the national team?
Perhaps yes, because there were 2 years that he was in the national team. I mean, as a regular player, because in 1978 he used to play some friendly matches. He didn't reach to the final national team who won the World Cup. And after the World Cup, he started to playing with some kind of regularity. And I think that that was his first trouble with Menotti because Maradona used to have this. He was friend, then he was his enemy, then he was his friend again, and then his enemy. And he has this with Menotti, with Bilardo. We are going to know that has those kind of fights also. It was Maradona showing us who Maradona was.
And speaking of Maradona, as we are months away from the 1982 World Cup, is it becoming more of a reality that Maradona would not stay in Argentina and would head to Europe?
Yes, because Maradona had the possibility of play with Boca, the team that he loved. And I think that at that point, it was like taking a book and mark an X and says, okay, I play with Boca now. What's the next step for me? Going to play to Europe. Which team? Barcelona, Real Madrid. At that time, I think that some of the Premiership teams, most important, also named that Maradona would go there. But the next step for Maradona, once he joined Boca, was to reach to Europe and make a very good career over there. So I think that at that point we knew that Maradona was going to finish his the rest of his career in Europe and not in Argentina.
Despite the fact that we mentioned some of the Menotti's experimentations, it seems like in the grand scheme of things, there were not that many experimentations. It seems like he had his ideal lineup in mind. Let's say for
Yes,
the
I,
defense, we can read it by heart, and
also, then the middle field, Gallego, Ardiles, even though Barbas was starting to be a very important piece for the team, Maradona, of course,
Campes Diaz. Yeah.
Kempes, Ramon Diaz, Patricio Hernandez, who was some kind of the replacement for Maradona, would make it to the World Cup in 82. And in the forward, I think, Amuchasti was at that time, he was playing in Racing de Córdoba. That was a team which was some kind of sensation for the championships in Argentina. And also Cucurucho Santamaria, who was a right winger and striker also in Newell's Old Boys de Rosario. I think that Menotti was with the idea of which players he was going to take to Spain next year. And I think that one of the most important and difficult decisions, and I came back to what I said, is when he left Luque out of the team. I think that may be one of the most important decisions because of what Luque was for the national team, for the other players. But he had Ramon Diaz, who was a fresh and terrible striker too, who was going to play in Italy too.
Of
In
course.
'82, a lot of Argentine players would finish
Patricio Hernandez joined
traveling.
Torino.
Torino, Ramon
Diaz
Diaz, I
joined
think that he went to
Avellino.
Avellino,
Passarella we
Passarella to
mentioned.
Fiorentina.
Berton
So
was very good.
a lot of players from that year would finish playing in Europe.
And Gabriel Calderon did not play this year, but he will be back next year before the World Cup, as will
Yes.
Jorge Valdano, Enzo Trocero. So some of these players would make the team in the last minute.
Trocero was a very experiment player at that time. I think that he played in Nantes
Yeah, not
in
yeah,
81. He was
right.
playing in Europe in Nantes, but he was a
So he
player with history in his backs.
right,
He was perhaps the first replacement
Passarella.
for Passarella. That's right. Even though he continued playing once Menotti left the national team and came Bilardo, Bilardo also picked it up for
Yeah.
playing with Argentina.
Trocero was very angry when Bilardo did not select him for 86 because he said
That's right.
he had promised the players who had qualified the team that he would take them. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And he was a very important player because when he came back from Europe, when playing from Nantes, he came here to Independiente,
right.
and
And
he
won the Copa
make
Libertadores and the
yeah, he
Intercontinental
make an
Cup.
incredible career there. I think that last week or a couple of weeks back, they make some to honor Trocero in Independiente. They give him
Mm.
some kind of plate and trophy for what he had done in Independiente.
In closing, what was the general takeaway from Argentina's performances for this calendar year 1981, looking forward to the 1982 World Cup the following year?
I think maybe the press was not satisfied, but when the press is satisfied, you tell
Indeed.
me. But I think that besides that, I will focus in that what was in Menotti's mind, that was the exactly moment of knowing which players he was going to select for the World Cup in the next year. And that's why I said that he was not focusing in the results of the matches instead of looking for those players and how they would develop in the national team. That was the very important thing for Menotti, no doubt about it.
With that, I would like to thank you for your participation in this series and looking forward to the important 1982 year, the last year of Menotti as manager of Argentina. All our respective contact information is listed on the blog and podcast uploads. So, Nacho, thank you once again and hope to continue these discussions on the Argentine
Of
national
course,
team.
next year, 1982, will be incredible. I promise.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you to be part of this. It's grateful and I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.